Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Supervisors for the budget hearings for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by myself? Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Supervisor Rivas is be a few minutes late, and we're just go ahead and start without him. He'll be here in a bit. Can I have a motion for a certificate of posting?
Mr. Chair.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. What we're due today is start with our budget hearings, and we're continuing this until we finish, and hopefully everything will go smooth, but we'll move till we finish with temporary due pass, and at which time we'll make sure all the numbers are correct, and we'll bring it back for approval at a later meeting. CEO Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As it's been every year, the last few years that I've been working with Melinda on the budget and with your board, it seems to have been, every year has been somewhat difficult. This year is no different. There's a lot going on in our community. There's a lot of things that we need to address that we haven't in years past. So with that, there's money that we need to put into some of these items, and we really haven't had a large amount of revenue coming in. It was really kind of no different than in years past. We do have increased housing, and there is some assessed values that are higher, so there is some more revenue. However, costs to operate pensions and other things also have risen. So with that being said, we're in a very similar situation managing the budget, and we've been very diligent at doing what we can to accommodate the needs of the department heads as well as the public, and moving different things forward, different projects, so on and so forth. So before you're on board today, this budget, we've addressed additional staffing in multiple departments for the sheriff's organization, the jail, the new jail coming up, RMA department, the DA, mental health, probation, and a few other departments with this particular budget. We've also added additional contingencies for emergencies. Your board had requested that at our last special board meeting. We'll also be monitoring budget quarterly as we have, but we'll be monitoring it a little bit more closely due to the additional staffing. I think it's really important. Again, as I mentioned before, there is risk, but there's also risk at not bringing people on board. It's really important to start addressing that. We've had some accounting items that we need to look at a little bit more closely, and we just really need to be doing some more. So that's the reason why we have additional staffing and before you today, with not a whole lot more revenue coming in, but I think that it's worth the risk to move forward with that. But we'll be monitoring it and making sure that your board's aware of it, and if we have to make any changes or adjustments during the year, we will. Mm-hmm. This budget also adds technology. We have updates, RP work from our auditor's office and IT office and administration. Also, our Arcella, RMA, we need to put more money into that office for streamlining our Arcella and the product, and other software packages that work with that for scanning in, as an example, scanning in permits or scanning in plans and other things, and being a little bit more transparent. So there's still some more work in that office that we need to address, and this budget highlights some of those things for technology updates. Also, speaking of technology, before you, I mentioned that at our last meeting that we would have a go live with OpenGov. So I'd like Dulce, if you don't mind, bringing that website up. This is now online for everyone to look at. Our department heads, the public, have now the ability to access this information. It's on multiple areas within our COSB.US network. Our IT office put the link in there, so it's the very top of the quick links, as you'll see there. Click on that. It's also in your budget packet, and this is the actual URL to access our county's finances and budget. Okay, it's still going to be a work in progress. We're going to still continue to address it and update it as we have with the ERP system. But I just want to make sure that the public is aware that they can access that now if they need to look at certain things, the CSAs, so on and so forth. So with that being said, I just wanted to highlight that for the board as we were going to make sure that that was a go live, and we were going to announce it today, as I mentioned before.
Congratulations.
Thanks. With that being said, I think overall the budget's it's a good budget. There's just we need to monitor it closely. I think that's going to be the key for the year. And also really looking at our classifications, our staffing. I think we're going to, it's going to be a multi-year project. I don't want to present to the board that's going to be done in 1 year because there's just a lot to it. We're going to have stakeholders involved, so it's going to be a multi-year, I think. But we're going to tackle some items this year, most definitely. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and hand it to Melinda. I want to also thank her for all her work. She worked really hard with this budget. It was a tough 6 months for her in many facets, as well as Dulce, our management analyst, and Lauren, our assistant clerk. They worked really hard on putting this together, as well as the department heads and staff. There was a lot of work that went in, a lot of working together to try to meet everyone's needs. I apologize that we weren't able to meet everyone's needs, but we did our best to do that this year, and we'll look at them. Those that didn't or weren't able to achieve the things that they wanted to this year, we'll look a little closer tomorrow or next year. No, it was just tomorrow, but next year. So with that being said, Melinda.
Okay, good morning. Again, I wanted to, I have a couple of logistics that I wanted to go over, but first of all, I'd like to thank Dulce and Lauren. Sometimes putting together this document can be just as daunting as putting together the budget numbers that go into the document, and they've spent many hours helping me put together this document. So again, I'd like to thank them for all their hard work. A couple of logistics that we want to go over real quickly is each department on the recommended budget has 4 sections. There's the first section is the kind of the summary of the department. It shows the revenue, and then it also shows the expenses and some items that are particular to that department this year. There's another section, Section 2, which is the narrative. We asked all the departments to provide a narrative kind of explaining what their accomplishments were this year, what their concerns are, a short-term and long-term. And we'd like to thank all the departments for providing those narratives for us and for your review. And then Section 3 is a detail of all those expenditures. And then Section 4 is the authorized positions for each of those departments. When we go through our budget, we're just going to look at Section 1, which has the summary of the revenue and expenditures. So if you have any questions or we need to go into detail a little bit further, just let us know. And then please also make sure that when you pass a budget that it's through, you do a temporary due pass so that we're able to go back and revisit that budget should you have any questions as we go through the whole entire budget and you want to go back and revisit a particular department. So I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions along the way, just let us know.
Any questions from the board? If not,
So I'd just like to pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right.
At this point,
Thank
you can consider the consent agenda.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a number of months, and one of the positive things is kind of going through this and kind of mock budget hearing, so to speak, and kind of get a feel where we're at as the spring goes on till we're at this point right now. And I know all the departments have been trying to keep everything in check, but also moving forward with, some added and needed personnel and so forth. The other thing that I'm hoping that we're all working on is continue to update our fee structure to make sure we do have, proper up-to-date reimbursement and revenues coming in. I can't emphasize that enough. And I know we have a few studies going on to bring some of our fees up to for reimbursement. And also, that's what's positive is there's some projects out there that I hope will generate some revenue to the county, so we could improve and enhance our services as well. Is there any other comments from the board? If not, we could go ahead and move forward with the consent agenda. And is there any items from consent that the board would like to pull?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item number 11 because I got an email from Melinda over the weekend that has changed. I just want to know what that change is, that's all.
Okay, I have 11. Any other items from the board? If not, any items from the public or from our staff? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion on the consent.
Motion to approve consent, Mr. Chair, as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Supervisor De La Cruz, I'll let you lead into item number 11.
Yes, Melinda, what's the change that has happened since Supervisor Medina and myself met with you a couple of weeks ago?
I don't believe there were any changes.
There were no changes?
I don't believe so. Did we do something? Did we misunderstand something?
Yeah, hold on a minute. Let me look at the email. Oh, says the recommendation by the CBO committee, the ones we were unable to fund, we found other ways to fund for except for the 211 asked for by United Way. So all those ones that we recommended, they're as is on the budget, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And then those that didn't get recommended for funding, either they found funding from somewhere else or they're not getting the funding. Correct?
So the coastal kids, the public health department has, it's my understanding that they've agreed to pick that up in their contract with coastal kids, the additional amount. And then the San Benito County Arts, I reached out to the probation juvenile hall, and asked them if they could help with that funding, and they indicated that they could. The only one that I haven't been able to find any department to help fund is the United Way request for the 211.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for temporary due pass.
Motion for temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We'll move on to our regular agenda. And I guess we'll be turning it over to Melinda CEO Espinoza.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to go ahead and hand this part to Melinda. She'll handle each item. She'll go through it. She'll go through the numbers in particular, any changes, highlight those, and then have your board discuss those items and then ask for a temporary due pass.
Okay.
So, Melinda?
Okay. So real quickly, I handed out a pretty big packet to all of you. This package goes in the order of the agenda. It might be easier for you to read the packet than to read the screen, but it's totally up to you. I'm going to follow through on the packet, but again, they're all in order, and we will bring them up as we discuss them. So beginning with the Board of Supervisors, there is not any revenue associated with this department, and there are expenditures recommended in the amount of $708,655. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Temporary do pass, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, hearing none. We'll move on to the clerk.
Okay, clerk of the board, excuse me, there's $2,000 worth of revenue associated with this department, $285,856 worth of expenditures. Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Temporary do pass, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none.
County Administrative Office, there's,
Question.
Excuse
I'm
me,
sorry.
Melinda.
Good question. Melinda, we're supposed to read out for this?
if you'd like to, or you could read the screen, whichever is easiest for you.
If you start on the tab,
It starts
I started, there's a little tab there that says regular agenda,
Got it.
and they're going in the order
Perfect,
of
thank
the
you.
agenda.
Got it.
County Administrative Office, there's $855,154 of revenue that has to do mostly with the cost plan. $1,014,470 worth of expenditures. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a motion.
Temporary do pass, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nobody. I hope the building updates is to have something to do with the HVAC, maybe. We'll move on
Okay.
to the general fund contributions for non-departmental expenditures.
Non-departmental expenditures, these are expenditures that are not associated with a particular department. Expenditures of $5,286,714. Any questions?
No? Well, maybe I have a question.
Okay.
So the possibility of the of a change with the fire contract, that's where we're pulled this money from, and so it's not affect our contingencies set aside,
Correct.
and so this is kind of like a mini contingency kind of
Right.
a budget unit.
Right. We've accounted for the contribution to the fire department in this budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's
And-
basically restricted to the items that we have stated below, or do we have flexibility after that?
No, those are just items. We have flexibility. Those are the items that make up the actual budget that you see before you. But things happen. Sometimes, costs maybe don't come in as high, and there's some funding there, and we can just bring that to your board. If it's over the amount that I have, the $10,000, then it comes to your board for approval on different items, contracts, one-time purchases, whatever it may be. It needs to come back before you, especially if it's not in this budget.
Okay.
So in this budget, we have contributions to the fire department, mental health, the other, our contribution to trial court funding, along with our leave payouts and our medical retiree payments. And then we have memberships, and there's a lot of little things in here that don't really necessarily belong to a specific department.
Okay.
And that makes up the $5 million.
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor Cruz?
on the $150,000 for leave payouts, if someone from a department leaves, then that cost will hit this account?
Right. We can, instead of trying to make the departments a detriment to a department because somebody leaves and there's a payout of vacation or sick time, things that we don't anticipate currently that happen throughout the year, they can dip into this. We'll transfer money from this account into their account so that they can go ahead and recruit to replace that person.
But when someone leaves, there's usually a gap period between you actually recruit, rehired. Where do those dollars go?
Can you explain a little bit more? What do you mean by a gap?
Well,
So the vacancy budgeting, I think, is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So whenever an employee leaves, we budget for all the employees, all the full-time employees in one of the schedules here. That's what we budget for. When an employee leaves and we do not hire somebody, they have extra funding. Quarterly, we'll come back to your board and we'll make a transfer of the extra money that they have in that office or in that fund will go into a different account. So that's what we do. So I think that's what you're asking. Is there's a gap in time, we'll pull that out, and then we have that as part of the vacancy budgeting. Technically, we don't need to pull it, but I think we're doing it just to manage it better and to make sure we have those funds and not those funds aren't being used somewhere else. And
I guess that's my question.
yeah.
Right?
So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and we bring it back to your board quarterly.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Chair, and then on Fund 260, which is the county fire department. I'm sorry, yeah. That's at a 2.13 million. Is that correct, Melinda?
The county fire department?
That's
I think it was 1.245, if I recall.
245?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is as of now, but it's most likely going to change.
Okay, as it is right now, but for the 18-19, the recommended is 2.1. Is that correct?
We are increasing that to accommodate the
then
the
we
increases.
and then we also have, I just saw it right now. Oh, yeah, and then we also have 500,000 and the non-departmental fund too. So we're typically having a total of $2.6 million.
I don't think so.
2.6. I'm sorry, did you move ahead to the fire department?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let me,
On
can you
Fund
find
two,
that one?
on Fund 260.
okay, so on the fire department,
Is that right? Am I
The only
right?
thing that I could
The-
think of, off the top of my head, if I could just venture a guess, is that we have planned, Rosa Murata, if we continue our contract with Hollister Fire, and I don't see the funds for Rosa Murata in the county fire department. What is it, 3040? But it would come out of non-departmental expense for that capital improvement. Does that make any sense?
so the budget for the Rosa Murata is in the capital improvement
It's
project.
in capital improvement, so we got 3 different areas where we got that.
Yeah.
So, in the fire fund, it's made, the revenue is made up from a combination of property taxes, and the general fund makes up the difference of what we anticipate to be expected on property taxes, and then the general fund makes up the difference of what the property taxes will not cover to make the payment to the city of Hollister. We also added in a little bit. We also added in about $30,000 because we've seen over the last couple of years that we usually have repairs to fire trucks and so we put some money in the budget for that also.
Mm-hmm.
And that is covered in your non-departmental expenses budget.
Okay. So there's 3 fund accounts. One is the Division 3040, which is for the taxes and all this other revenues. It's designated just for fire services.
Correct.
And then we're having $500,000 coming out of general fund to use during negotiations. And then we have the capital improvement list for the Rosada facility.
Correct.
That's right, for impact fees.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I'll bring it back for a motion for non-departmental expenses
Temporary due pass, Mr. Chair.
for temporary due pass. Is that a motion,
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Vick? Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We'll move on to Human Resources Internal Services.
Actually, we're at non-departmental revenues.
Oh, I apologize. You're right. That's the second part of general purpose non-departmental revenues. Okay, got it.
Non-departmental revenues, these are revenues that are not associated with a particular department. They're mostly property taxes and sales taxes. We have revenue of $27,428,841. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Supervisor Cruz.
Thank you. Melinda, the 17-18 taxes of 16.7 million,
Correct.
and at first the requested was 21.88, and you guys finally went down to a 19.3. Is that because PB2? I figured that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Temporary due pass.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Now we do Human Resources.
Human Resources, there's revenue in the amount of $537,774, and there are expenses in the amount of $662,636. Any questions?
Supervisor Medina?
Can you define the classification study? What are we doing? And once we receive that information, what will we do with that information?
Yeah, so we've already had a few meetings internally to discuss that in particular. What we have to do is we're going to first look at, we've looked at a couple of options. I think we need to then present that to the stakeholders. So the first thing that we're going to do is gather the stakeholders, meet with everybody, and that includes, we want to get the unions involved, department heads, and many other, especially the executive department heads to meet to discuss the needs. Again, we need to look at it holistically. All of our classifications. We have to keep in mind compaction. There's a lot of elements to it. One of I think the most important pieces to this is really delving into the language. In some of the classifications, there's information that contradicts each other, and that's really important. So kind of vetting that out is going to be really important. And again, we have a lot of classifications. Which ones are being used, which ones aren't? We really have to look at them all. So that's the first step, is just really scrutinizing, analyzing the classes themselves, and then looking at what we can tackle to try to achieve, getting the low-hanging fruit for this year. If we get the unions involved, which we will, we plan to, we'll invite them. It's up to them if they want to come. At that point, there's a lot that goes involved with that. We have to meet and confer. We have to go through a lot, and that's really important. If not, as an example, we went ahead and started we're learning from what we did this last year. We have policies. We worked with the policies. We actually vetted it out. And now we're meeting and conferring, and it's taking some time. So we want to have them a part of the process to try to expedite and move the items forward. So we're going to take a different angle on that with the classifications. But, the non-classed employees, I think we can probably address those first this year. So that's really that's the plan. And then we'll come back to your board definitively with, a kind of a real plan at that point once we develop it. But that's the high level.
And is the overall goal to decrease turnover? Is that one of the goals?
That'll be part of, I think, one of the aspects that we look at, most definitely.
The only reason I say that, because in studies it shows the cost of turnover is about 50% of their salary. So by looking at this and really setting goals, definitely we'll see a savings in the long run.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you. Hey, Ray,
Yeah.
the HR department salary and benefits has increased over the last couple of years, just because you're bringing in positions into that department?
We
that
haven't.
were other somewhere
From
else?
when? Can you show me where you're?
For example, in 15-16, it was 237. Well, better yet, if you look at the other sheet on salaries, in 15-16, it was 153. And then 16-17, it went up to 175. And then last year's adopted was 350, and this year is 389.
We actually do not have any FTE increases in this department. We've just, a lot of this, you see the effect of the COLA and the PERS increases that we've recently agreed to.
Well, how many positions did HR have under in 16-17?
HR has 5 positions.
5 positions. And then 17-18?
In 17-18, they have 5, and in 18-19, they have 5. I believe we've added 1 position over the last couple of years.
Well, it'll be
I just,
6 years.
am I getting it wrong?
No, I don't. I'm not following you. I mean, we haven't changed the actual amount of employees in that office for multiple years. I think it's been 3 years. They've had the same FTE count. So I'm not following. I'm not sure where you're at or what you're looking at.
Sure. Go ahead.
Would one of the changes be that we're not using a lot of outside services also?
Mm-hmm.
When I look at that, I look at the bottom line. I know we've increased the bottom line, but when you look at the wages or the salaries, they will increase, and the outside services will decrease, which shows that. But I think what Supervisor Dela Cruz is speaking of, there still is, if you look at the 2015-16 actual for the total expenditures, was 464 versus a 662 what we're asking for. So that's almost roughly a $200,000 increase. That's what I think you're referring to. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, I think back then we didn't have this thing on or not. We actually didn't have the head count as we do today. So I think there was an additional person from that 1 year, but they filled their position. As you know, there's vacancies in many positions. So if this is from my recollection, I don't know if Melinda has any further information with that.
So what I was going to say is 15-16 and 16-17 are actuals. We have been trying to fill the HR director position for quite a few years, and we have not been successful on that. And so what you see in 15-16 and 16-17 are what we actually spent in those departments. However, we do budget for the personnel director at full budget, and which we did in 16-17. You're just seeing the actuals, not the budgeted amounts. And we will continue to budget for that director. However, real quickly, if you look at our authorized position schedules, we made a little bit of a change in all the departments. So this position we could fill at a deputy CAO, an HR manager, or a management analyst. We've made some so that every time we think we're going to hire a deputy assistant CAO. However, we weren't successful in that, so we're going to go back and hopefully recruit for an HR manager. But we would have to come back to your board and ask you to make that change on the authorized position schedule. So this year we made a lot of authorized positions a little bit more flexible, so we didn't have to keep coming back and forth to your board asking for a change every time that we wanted to hire at a different level. So the budget that you see before you on HR includes the personnel director that is vacant, and we've budgeted at full staffing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I hear from you is, one, that position is filled already, right?
Well, no, there's a position that's not filled right now. Yeah,
so
that's
next
correct.
year, when we're going through this again next year, it might be less than 389. because that
The
position,
actual will be less, most likely. That's exactly right. And so that's what I was explaining earlier about the vacancy budgeting piece is similar to this. If we don't fill this position, that amount of money goes into a different pot.
Vacancy budget.
But I'm glad Melinda brought this up, and I'm glad you brought this up, Supervisor De La Cruz, is that it's been hard for the departments to hire. Supervisor Medina just mentioned, what do we need to do? Well, this is one avenue that we're trying to be a little more flexible on being able to hire individuals. So this is another avenue that we're trying to do this year. So, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public or staff? Okay. Bring it back to the board for a motion.
temporary due pass, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We'll move on to IT.
Okay, information technology, there are revenues of $474,805 and expenditures in the amount of $726,206. Any questions?
Questions from the board?
This one, you definitely increase the positions, right, Melinda?
This one, the positions are relatively the same. We added a little bit of expenditures in the area of services and supplies for website design and also social media outreach.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
So what I was going to say is we've budgeted in the capital improvement projects roughly $1 million for IT to do some improvements as needed in the infrastructure, IT infrastructure, but that budget is in the capital improvements project.
Okay. Supervisor
Okay.
Medina?
On the website, social media startup funding, when is the expected date to actually see something that we can touch, feel, and see?
Well, that is that's going to probably take some time, as most things do. We have to wait till the board approves the budget and before we have the money. Right now they're working on many other things. So again, website, it could be 6 months before we see something, get somebody on board, bring it to your board. We have to take this item to your board for approval. There's a process through it. So realistically, developing code, it depends on how in depth we go as well. If we address the website and we change the platform that we're in and we go completely with a different platform, that can take some time to develop the code and then incorporate all of our data. Everything that we have into the system will take a lot of time. So one of the things that many counties are doing, they're actually developing more or less a search engine within the actual website to access information. And I think that's key. That's one of the goals I've actually asked IT is that'll help us with Records Request Act. I think it's really important. Our county council has to go through a lot. Our auditor, our IT division, there's a lot of time wasted. So what we're doing is trying to look at things to make things more efficient. And that's one of the tasks that I think it's very important. I've asked IT to work on that. And when they go through the interview process or go out through an RFP process, that's one of the key elements to that.
So
it can take 6 months. It can take a year. Just really depends on how much information and what level we actually move to. That's a pretty big.
But not only are we providing our residents with information, we're also decreasing some of our time spent with records acquisitions and everything to that sense. Therefore, it's pretty darn efficient.
It's a much better way to address this, and we can just direct them to the website, and they can access it themselves.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the board.
Temporary due pass.
I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we'll move to county fire contract.
County fire contract. Revenue in the amount of $2,183,682 with offsetting revenue I'm sorry, for the expenses of $2,183,682. Perhaps I should make a little clarification here. When we were discussing this back in the interdepartmental expenses, we have an increase of $500,000. If you look at the miscellaneous revenues that total $820,000, we originally had $305,000 in there, so we increased it with the $500,000 also that's in interdepartmental expenses for a total of $820,000.
Oh, okay, so
So-
if I can understand, that, so that
Yeah.
500 is recognized there
Correct.
too.
I'm sorry, there was originally $305,000 dedicated in this budget from the general fund, and then with the fire contract information that we have, we increased it an additional $500,000.
Okay, now it's a bit clearer picture. Supervisor Medina, did you?
Yeah, first of all, I want to bring this up to Supervisor Munger and Supervisor Bertello. Thank you for spending a lot of time on the contract and trying to bring something that we can read and sign. I don't know where we're at this point in time, but we need to really talk to the city and make sure that we can figure out where we're at and how we're going to cross the finish line. I know you guys have been working hard on this, and I just wanted to get kind of an update where we're at.
Yeah, and before I recognize the CEO, one of the challenges that we've had, we definitely want to try to get this resolved in the next couple of months. Absolutely, one way or the other. But is having the right people talking to the right people at the right time. And sometimes we got to kind of depend on our administration staff at the county to talk to the city administrative staff, and then bring that information to the advisory committee, and that's where we're at right now, and hopefully we're resolving some of those some of the issues that need to be resolved before we could bring a recommendation to our board. So, CEO Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just to update the board, I actually met with the city manager 2 weeks ago, the week following our last board meeting, regular board meeting, and we discussed their recommendation on the fire contract. There were some concerns from the ad hoc about the location of the fire station. Should it be in the unincorporated area? Should it not be? So we discussed that, and we discussed what the recommendation from the ad hoc would be, as well as the dollars and cents and a few other items. So we left the meeting, I think, feeling pretty good about the conversation. They were going to go back, do some work on it. I am going to reach out to them again. They're going dark, I believe, and the city's going dark in July, if I recall.
Yes.
So he's going to bring it back to their council after we kind of work out the fine-tuning of it in August, and then we'll bring it back to your board probably at the end of August sometime, just so the board's aware of that. Or it may be, probably early September. It just depends on timing.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in time, we still feel that the fire station on Fairview and Rosemarada, that's still in its planning stages to be filled with I think it was one bay. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, so I can add to that. We've never stopped working on it. Public Works and I discussed that. There were almost, there were 5 yards before finishing, getting on the goal line or getting to the end zone. So the department head and I discussed it. We figured, we might as well finish it since we've gone this far, and then we'll have a finished product ready to go if we decide to continue in that location. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if I could speak for Supervisor Munzer, but I think it's absolutely critical that we have a in-county fire station that's outside of the city limits for best protection of the unincorporated areas. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, any questions or comments from public or staff? If not, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Temporary do pass.
Second, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Move on to County Auditor section here, debt services.
Debt service. So this is a resurrection of an old budget unit that we had before. There are expenses of $150,000. We are anticipating that we are going to be financing a couple of projects this year, and this money is in here to work with the cost of financing those projects. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none. Any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none. Bring it back to the board.
Temporary do pass, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Risk management.
General fund risk management. There are essentially not any expenditures in this budget. We are going to we've added a person, a risk management analyst, that will be covered by Trimdale funding or through the cost plan. And so there's essentially not going to be a cost to having that person on board. So I know this looks a little funny, but we do have requested a person, an authorized position to handle basically risk management type of issues that come up in the county, and especially through the HR department that works in conjunction with the county counsel's office and the auditor's office too. Okay. Any questions?
I guess, just for logistics or finances. Total revenue says 0, but yet total county cost is $2.5 million.
So in the salary and benefits, we did. If you look on the detailed, the salary and benefits would total about $150,000, and then we will have offsetting revenue, which we put in interdepartmental labor transfers. We'll get that money from all the other departments or through the cost plan, and that will offset that particular position.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? CEO Espinoza.
I was just going to highlight that this is really important. Our county really hasn't had somebody full-time with this. I think it's real important for the department heads and staff to really look, to do things that we can do to lower this. There's been a lot of costs associated with this and in many facets, and I think it's one key position we really need to look at this year. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Supervisor Medina.
This is for educational purposes and my purpose also. Who is the keeper of the risk management? Who oversees the entire umbrella of risk management?
So right now we have Joe Paul Gonzalez. He is actually our risk manager for the county. He attends all of the Trimdale meetings. He represents us as a vote for our insurance and other things. So it's a pooled insurance that we have with different counties. And then we have Lorena. She assists with going out to the departments to looking at the ergonomics and making sure that there's training, making sure that everyone's adhering to the trainings and other things. But again, it's what we're doing is just doing the minimum. We need to do more, and that's what this position can do, and help start reducing the amount of cost when someone gets injured, or there's a lot of different facets.
So this position will report to Joe Paul?
We haven't discussed that yet. This position may take over the entire risk part of it. Joe Paul has a few departments he has to take care of, right?
Several.
So we need to probably lighten the load for a few folks. But again, at this point, it's a full-time job. And that's kind of what we wanted to do, is put all the facets together. There still may be some oversight by Joe Paul and myself. There still may be other components that we need to look at. And it also depends, too, on the person that we bring in and the knowledge base that they have. So there's, probably in the beginning, I would say that there's probably going to be some oversight by Joe Paul and myself. in the beginning, but I think at the end, our goal is to have this person be the person. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
If I could ask a question along those lines, I know in the private sector you got to keep some sort of record of training and things like that. How are we pretty much as where we want to be with that, or is this something that this person would be able to help us move to that next level?
We are actually doing that. Yeah, we are actually doing it. I did receive a report at our last board meeting. I actually was going to present that to the board. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it. But I have a record of the trainings that actually have occurred and the required trainings and where we're falling short or where we're doing well with. So we do have that. But this person would handle that as well. That's the plan, and to be probably more diligent and being more preventative than just reactive. I think that's kind of the key to this position is we need to be more preventative and thinking of other things and doing more for the employees within our county and really advocating for safety and other things. That's, I think, really the important part of it. So.
Any other questions, comments? Questions, comments from public or staff? Seeing none, bring it back for a motion.
Temporary do pass.
Have a second? I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Move on to County Council.
County Council. There are revenues in the amount of $596,428 with expenditures in the amount of $1,210,528. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Supervisor Medina?
Litigation. Can we talk about the 345 existing litigation already approved? And is it acceptable to bring up a detail of our litigation?
I could do it in the aggregate if you would like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Can you define a little bit more clear what you're
right
asking
now,
for?
we have a number set
Yeah.
by people that we intend to pay. Is there anything wrong with us showing that right now?
It would be a legal question, I think.
No, we have anticipated expenditures for the existing litigation of $620,500.
And what is the largest expense?
The anticipated expense would be for the Hollister School District,
And what is that amount?
approximately $315,000.
So half of that is under the Hollister School District.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It's a shame that it seems to me that we're fighting for more between court costs than what realistically anybody could receive from the mistake. It's like fighting with a buck to recover 10 cents, and it's just we're forced into this situation. We're not being unreasonable, and but it's something that drives our budget. Something we have to anticipate that we have to react and protect the county. It's ridiculous. But
Mr. Chair, if I may as well, to add.
CEO.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think that's one of the premises of why the board wants to increase the contingencies, because if we have to go through this process, we don't know where it's going to be. We don't know where it's going to go, and we have to anticipate. So this is kind of a scenario that we have to put in a little more money for that, as well as last year we had flooding and or the prior year, and who knows what's going to happen with other things that we may be confronted this year with. So that's the reason why, Mr. Chair.
So if we pass this as is, the $532.90, and we exceed that, it would come back to the board, and we would have to 4/5 of the vote. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Rather
correct.
than
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments? Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Melinda, are we increasing any FTE positions in this?
No,
There's
this
no
budget.
increase in the FTE position. Okay, thank you. Going in the vein of Supervisor Medina, I cannot support this budget until I see the list of all outside contracts with our outside lawyers and all phone calls associated with those contracts. So I would not be voting to approve this budget item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public or staff? I'll bring it back to the board. How difficult would it be to bring that information forward to review the costs and outside contracts up to this point? Is something we could have, as Supervisor Munzer requested, prior to passing this?
Right, we can bring all the contracts to the board.
And all phone calls associated with those contracts?
You mean like invoices and such?
Yes.
We won't be able to get that done today. We'll have to come back and do a discovery and look at that. I can tell you just from past experience, it's not going to be something we can get. But we could note this, and depending on the board's decision, if your board gives a majority on this, and then we could still come back if the board wishes with that information.
Okay.
And
So we could still temporarily do past this and then bring it back with when we do the final budget, and that's when the ultimate end decision is approving or disapproving the budget.
And with the chair's thought that perhaps Supervisor Munzer would like to come up to our office and we could pull all the invoices that we've done for the last year.
No, I would not.
Okay, because we do redact those invoices before they're submitted to the auditor's office because they have attorney-client privileged information. I would not want to submit the invoices in open session to the board because we don't make those invoices public, but I'm happy to share them with individual members of the board.
Just Supervisor Medina.
Just with all due respect to Supervisor Munzer, I agree with what we're saying here, but my question here would be for legal counsel is a lot of this is forecasted, correct?
Yes. I mean, it's, well, we've requested we've based it up on our budgets. That's the outside counsel have submitted for next year, as well as the contracts that we have currently with outside counsel, minus the expenditures that we've made to those contracts to date. We do not have a contract with the Hollister School District through the close of litigation, through the trial, but we have a partial contract in place that will take us through the next several months, and that we did that in the anticipation, the hope that we would be engaged in some sort of settlement discussions this year. But the amount that we've included in our budget would be the amount that would be necessary to take this case to trial by the end of 2018. And that was verified with Mr. Colantuno's office.
Yes.
I think, from my perspective of what's happening right now, and I understand this is kind of a projected, estimate of what's happened this coming year with some of the litigation that looks like it's on our books and the cost of that. I, as one supervisor, would like to see a different system. It's something that when I became a supervisor, that's been a problem for a long time. We sit and listen to these litigations in the back room. We have no idea what the true costs are and projected costs going forward. And I'll give you a perfect example that made me feel somewhat victimized the entire time I've been here. Was the Scagliotti lawsuit. It cost the county over $500,000, and with the understanding that I thought we were to get that money back, we never did, and we can't. And I don't know if if I would have made different decisions, knowing the cost as things were, being generated, and other options, and I think that's where I don't know, maybe Supervisor Munzer has different ideas, but from my perspective, listening to his concern, that I would like to have more of an idea when we're talking about our options as far as what to do and the costs associated with that, and that's, I think, something that maybe your office could work on going forward to create a different process that, how we make our decisions. That's just from my perspective anyway. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public or staff?
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
No.
3-1 on that one. We'll move on to the next one. Treasurer, tax collector. Treasurer.
Okay. The treasurer's budget revenue in the amount of $401,841, and the expenditures would be the same amount, $401,841. This is a no county cost department. Any questions?
Supervisor Medina?
I like the salaries and benefits because they decreased, but from 17-18. But what is the reasoning behind that?
On the salaries and benefits?
Yes, it went from.
Yes, so the cost of the exiting treasurer, tax collector versus the one coming in, there's a different amount in the salary, and so we accounted for that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so one's been an incumbent for years, and as a top step, the new one's going to come in at the first step.
And who is the new one?
Yours truly.
Well, I was going to save it for later, but I just wanted to say congratulations on that, and this would be your last budget also, so you've done an excellent job in bringing this all together and listening to me on the weekends and at night, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from the board? If not, any comments, questions from the public or staff? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Temporary due pass.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Tax collector.
The tax collector's budget, revenues in the amount of $101,900, and expenditures in the amount of $381,888, for a net county cost of $199,988. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public or staff? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none. We'll go on to the assessor's office.
The assessor's office, $523,600 in revenue, and expenditures of $2,194,548, with a net county cost of $1,670,948. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
Temporary due pass.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We'll go on to the sheriff.
Sheriff's Patrol operations, $1,515,890 in revenue, and expenditures of $6,013,000 $568 with a net county cost of $4,497,678. Any questions?
Any questions? Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At I think our last study session, I asked to have it brought back whether at what point the South County deputy funding ends from PBS. Has that been determined?
Good morning, Board. Eric Taylor, Operations Captain with the Sheriff's Office. As it stands right now, we have a commitment for funding through the end of the calendar year. It doesn't mean it's going to end at the end of the calendar year, but we have a commitment for funding from the PV2 to fund through the end of December. If it goes the way it's gone to this point, if the project's still going, then the funding will still come in. But if that funding were to end, we do have alternative funding to still investigate ag type and rural crime in South County.
So you're assuring me the position will not go away with the PBS?
So as far as what we would consider like a South County deputy, is that what you're asking
Yes.
for? Yeah. So our intent would be to, even if the PV2 funding were to go away for the project, for the dedicated deputy we have in the Panoche Valley, we have alternative funding that we will still staff a South County deputy for rural type crime and ag type crime, yes.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any Supervisor Medina?
Where are we at with our current manning? Are we at full manning? Are we searching for candidates or?
So we are not fully staffed with our FTEs that we have already approved, but we are working on recruitment.
How short are we? Roughly?
I think 4 vacancies and 3 on leave currently. So it looks like we have 2 pretty viable candidates coming in currently, and we're actively recruiting with entry level and with lateral and academy graduates currently.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, any questions from Sergio Espinoza? Or?
I was just going to highlight that at our last department head meeting, the sheriff brought up cannabis and the discussion of that and what's this plan. And we had our last board meeting. There were a lot of folks wanting to move that forward, our ordinance. So we are planning to move that forward. We reached out to HDL. But with that being said, that's going to be one of the major criteria. If there is growth in South County, we want to make sure that there's safety out there and that there's deputies. But the sheriff will be chiming in with that. If the board decides and the planning commission decide to go in that direction with the ordinance and the land use piece, then we'll make sure that we have to have the financing for that. So make sure the board's aware of that.
Yeah, and possibly that's be another revenue source to maintain that patrol out there. It can't happen unless there is.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring it back to the board.
Temporary do pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We'll go on to the Corrections Division.
Corrections, revenue in the amount of $603,567, expenditures in the amount of $6,245,370, with a net county cost of $5,641,703. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? I guess I'll ask the question. We know with the new jail coming online that I guess it requires 5 additional FTEs, and we have 2. Mm-hmm. What's to happen with the other 3?
So it's the CAO's. We added a position a couple of years ago, so that should bring them up to 3. And then since the jail will be opening in the spring of 2019. That's pretty close to our whole budget process for the following year. So it would be our anticipation that we would add another 1 or 2 correctional officers in the next budget.
Okay. So before I come back to you, I got one other question. Would we be using more jailers to guard the same number of people? Is that what's be happening when the new jail opens? We would need more jailers. Or we're adding on more jailers, but we're hopefully not adding jail occupants. SAO.
Okay, so the sheriff can speak to this, but I will go ahead and discuss with your board what we have discussed in the past. The plans are to move the current staffing over to the new jail area, so that's the plan. One of the reasons why we're moving forward with adding personnel today and giving the sheriff the ability to bring someone on board today when the jail's not even done yet to bring additional people is that there's a time for recruitment. There's a long process for them to actually go through the recruitment process. There's a lot of time involved. So we wanted to give them a head start, but that means that there's money associated with it now. So we are not seeing that increase in personnel that they need to, the increase in jail, being housed there in jail, but there is an increase in personnel today because they need to do the training. They need to move forward with that. So, but there is going to be a transition once the jail is completed with the existing staff and moving them over, and then addressing, then we can address the additional staff at a later date and look at other sources of revenue. Because right now, as it stands, we are, as I mentioned before, we're more or less status quo with revenues coming in, other than the increase in housing. But we won't see some of those increases till a year or 2 down the road in some cases, and it's just we don't really receive the full benefit as of yet when a house goes up. So that's really our main source. We don't have a whole lot of sales tax and other funding sources, but administration is working on looking at other avenues for increased revenues. But with that being said, that this is the plan that we have. We actually are increasing staffing in other locations, so we didn't. I think it would have been too much to have a $2 or $3 million gap without. We had to be fair for everybody, so to speak, within the entire budget. So, but we also wanted to let the sheriff's organization start and get moving with the recruitment. So that's where we're at, Mr. Chair. Hopefully that answers your. I think that answers your question.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public or staff? Seeing none, bring it back.
Temporary due pass.
The second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We'll move on to the district attorney.
Okay, the district attorney has revenue in the amount of $208,200 and expenses in the amount of $1,771,693 with a net county cost of $1,563,493. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public or staff? Seeing none. What's the wishes of the board?
Temporary due pass.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We're go to 10:30, and then we'll take a short break and continue on. So that puts us halfway through the morning that way.
Okay.
But we'll move on to probation.
Probation. They have the department has $1,519,293 in revenue. Expenditures in the amount of $3,815,328 with a net county cost of $2,296,035. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? I see you're reading the Part D. that the elimination of the gang prevention program will be shared with Hollister. What does that mean? We're eliminating the gang prevention program?
So it's our understanding that the gang prevention program is essentially eliminated. However, they wanted to continue working with the city of Hollister on the importance of this program. They felt was the importance of this program with the city of Hollister. And so it appears that they'll be trying to work out some contract to share an employee with the city of Hollister. There was there were two FTEs associated with the gang prevention program. One was a staff analyst and one was, I believe, an office assistant. And they wished to keep the staff analyst and bring them into probation to help with a lot of the statistical reporting that's required with probation and all the new laws coming down from the state. And so we basically shifted that analyst into the probation department. There is not any offsetting revenue with that particular analyst, and under the gang prevention program, there was roughly maybe 66% of that position was covered by revenue. And so we moved that into the probation department.
I see. Is Supervisor Munzer?
Melinda, I don't know if you can answer this, or we need to get somebody for probation. But why was this program eliminated?
It's been decreasing, I believe, throughout the year. I believe all the partners didn't necessarily want to continue participating in that program.
We have probation here. They can probably answer that. I'd like to go ahead and invite the probation department up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My understanding of this is that, yes, it had been decreasing a little bit through time. We also lost Al DeVos, who was the person who was the coordinator, and so there was some speculation as to what was going on. And I know Chief Baran had some ideas in mind to bring into the fold to help out with the statistical data that is coming down from the state in order to get grants and things of that nature. And so that is what we were thinking we would use as far as the analyst is concerned. I don't know if you have any other questions on that, or.
Yeah, Supervisor. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure you answered my question.
I'm not sure I did either.
Why was the program eliminated?
Oh, to my understanding, it hasn't been eliminated completely yet. As was stated earlier, there are members who contributed that were no longer interested in contributing to this. And
which members were those?
It was
the Office of Ed, if I recall.
Yeah, Office of Education, San Diego Office, City. I'm not City. The Office of Education,
Hollister School District,
and Hollister School District had basically said that they were no longer interested in participating in this.
So the Office of Education and the Hollister School District decided to pull out of the program. Mm-hmm. The county never decided to pull out of this program.
Well,
correct?
That is correct. And,
all right, thank you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So now we're trying to come up with funding at least one position, but we're asking the city to help us with that?
Yes, well, they originally were a part of it as well, and so they didn't pull out, and so we are looking at how we could further utilize that position to be mutually beneficial to both organizations. So
okay,
yeah.
So as long as the city is a participant financially, equal
right
participant financially, then I can support this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Medina?
Is this something we can talk to our lobbyist about? Trying to look for grants or trying to talk to people up in Sacramento?
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should be talking to people locally. I think this was an absolutely vital program turning around the gang problem that was really gaining steam a few years back in our county and in our city here. It's really too bad that the Office of Education and I can't understand why the school district would pull out of something like this. That's lunacy, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't have any particular knowledge as to what their thinking was behind that. I'm sure the chief
There
does.
was no thinking.
Yeah, well, so that's just we're dealing with the fallout and we're doing the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy that we're trying to still continue the effort. Okay, any other comments? Thanks. Any comments from the board?
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We'll move on to juvenile detention.
Juvenile hall, revenue in the amount of $48,154. Expenditures in the amount of $1,646,361 with the net county cost of $1,598,207. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions, comments from public or staff? Seeing none, bring it back.
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, hearing none. We'll go on to the county library.
County library, revenues in the amount of $110,175. Expenditures in the amount of $1,267,792 with a net county cost of $1,157,616. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? I guess I have a question. I'm sorry to see that. Oh, there's the librarian right there. Last year, we asked the librarian Conte to look into getting some additional revenue to have those Sunday hours for our librarian. She made a couple of presentations at the Hollister City Council, and I find it almost kind of insulting. Just getting what we get from Hollister for a facility that's basically used by the citizens in the city, in that neighborhood primarily. And I'd like to see the library hours expanded, and with a little partnership from the city, at least a bone. Doesn't have to have much meat on it. And but we haven't been thrown a bone, and I'm having a hard time justifying, especially as tight as our budget is and the needs in a lot of other departments, that we, kind of continue to expand this budget. I don't know if the librarian has anything to add or a justification. Maybe but I'm having a hard time, supporting the additional hours and the additional FTE when we have a couple other departments that are kind of could use that help.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any comment? CEO?
I just wanted to just elaborate a little bit more on what you said. I did have a meeting with Nora and discussed, her presentation at the city. I think that the city council members, I think, felt that they wanted to do more, but they wanted to see some data. They wanted to have some more information. They, I believe, I guess are going to keep it the same as of now. And that's pretty much it. Nora's been requesting additional personnel for a while now, and wanting to increase her hours and doing some more things in that office. With that, it's the request is 0.5 individual more for her, and then the additional one. But it's up to the board what they want to do with that. I know that there's been a lot of suggestions from the public and different folks to help out and to try to do more for the library. So again, this is up to you as the board. If you want to have more buy-in from the city before we actually move forward with this, I think that's a valid concern, a valid point. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that she did request from the city additional money, and they didn't approve it. They, I think, wanted additional to talk some more and get some more additional information. So that's where we stand.
Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Supervisor Batella. But the library is an important part of our community, and we have to look at this. We're not receiving additional funding from the city, understood. But I still have to look at opening on Sundays, adding a 0.5 FTE. We just need to take the higher road and educate our entire county and city. If the city doesn't want to pay for it, I'm willing to look in our budget and find some money to fund it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the board? Any comments from the public or staff? I'll bring it back to the board.
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Hearing none. I'll just, you make a good rationale.
I know what you're saying. I agree with you.
Yeah, but it is pretty frustrating that we're looking for partners to solve a lot of problems, and it's a battle. Move on. We'll do one more. The Ag Commissioner.
The Ag Commissioner's budget. Revenues in the amount of $1,020,000 and expenditures in the amount of $866,000 with a net county cost of $61,866. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? No. Supervisor Munzer?
Well, my question, I see that the Ag Commissioner was requesting one vehicle. Was that approved in this budget?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Medina?
I just want to recognize, if you look at 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, or 17, 18 went down a little bit, but you've been increasing that revenue. And I know that's part of the bullet point, revenue increasing, and has been focusing of and has been a focus of department. We see that, continue to do that, and thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public or the staff that are here? Seeing none.
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We'll take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Okay. A couple of minutes behind schedule, but that's not too bad. We left off, we did the Ag Commissioner last, so we're due RMA now. Melinda?
Okay, can I just real quickly, I got an email regarding the 211 funding, and EMS said that they could fund that through their budget for the 211 project that in the CBO that we were not able to recommend. EMS said that they would be able to fund that request.
Okay, Supervisor Munzer?
Well, I had a question, but I was going to check with you offline. But how much does United Way need for 211?
They requested $5,000.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry, the planning department. They request there's revenue of $1,565,000 and total expenditures in the amount of $2,579,011 for net county cost of $1,014,011. Any questions?
Well, you're trying to figure that out, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
And maybe we need the RMA director. In our new fees, will this end up breaking even, or is that not possible, planning department? I always figure planning is one department should at least break even, if not generate some revenues.
So taken as a whole, that is the intention to basically to recover all of our costs. In planning, we don't recover our costs. Excuse me. But then there's components of building and building permits that make up for that.
Okay, and I guess that's what I'm lumping everything.
Right.
So building is not part of this.
So building and planning are together. So when you take building and planning as a whole with code enforcement, then we should break even with our fees.
All right, then, okay, wait a minute. So on the agenda, it says building, planning and building. So is this planning and building that we're looking at here?
This is planning and building, yes, all combined.
And but we're still $1 million short in revenues.
Is that right?
Yeah, but Mr. Chair, if I may add a little bit. So we are in the process. Tomorrow, you'll be seeing County Council moving forward with fees, and updated on fees. We've addressed impact fees, but we haven't addressed fees yet. So RMA is working on revising their fee structure as well as other departments. We're bringing that back with an update to the board on fees. So it's probably going to take a year or two to kind of work through it, and I think it'll be a lot closer from that perspective on a cost recovery.
Right. There's other work that we do as well that's not included in the fees. The fees are just for processing permit applications, but long range planning, so general plan implementation, things like that, that all has to be covered by the general fund.
Oh, and that's all lumped in.
That's all lumped in this also.
Okay, thank you.
But we do have to revise our fees, so our fees aren't currently up to date the way they should be.
Okay. And I was just reading this as planning just being planning.
Right, yeah. No, it's
all right.
one.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions from the board? John, while I got you, it's some continued consultant support. So that included the contract. Did we approve that yet? Last meeting?
Tomorrow.
Or it's tomorrow?
Tomorrow. You're talking for leave.
Yeah,
For
leave. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Right. And that also had the other consultant that we're doing some zone change work.
With
Precision is engineering that we brought on board as well. That's another group.
And EMC is helping us with the Highway 101 nodes, commercial nodes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And those that one's reimbursable to us. Though,
right, that's a project cost, yeah. And then the four-leaf, that I'll talk more about it tomorrow, but I can give you a preview that, that's part of the process of changing the department and changing the structure of the department. There are functions that make sense to continue to contract out, like plan review. But we actually have an open recruitment for the chief building official right now, and we'll see how that goes. But in the interim, we still are contracting out the chief building official function as well.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Temporary do pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Move on to Public Works, I guess. Or we, yeah.
Economic.
Public Work Administration, revenue in the amount of $132,750. Expenditures in the amount of $1,777,178. Currently a net county cost of $1,644,428. Any questions?
I'm going to ask about the Capital Projects Manager. Don't we already have one?
I believe we have the Capital Program Manager.
Right. So we have a capital program manager, which is Adam, and he oversees the day-to-day management of the capital projects. This is a project manager that will support Adam, but then will also support the engineering division in helping us with our road programs and helping Scott get our invoices out on time and getting our road program back on track.
Oh, okay. All right.
So this will be a multifaceted project manager.
Okay. Does the SB1 funds help pay for that or pay a portion of it? I know we can't use too much of it administratively, but
Right.
would that be revenue for that?
A little bit, yeah. And then also through our other federal and state funding for roads.
However, keep in mind that we also have to have an MOE with to cover a certain maintenance of effort on the general fund for the SB1 project. So there's money that we have to, depending on how much money we get allocated and what the programs are, but for
Right.
each year. But just so you know, last year I think we put in about $150,000, I think, out of the general fund.
180, yeah. So there's other anticipated benefits to the county because we haven't in the past done a good job of getting reimbursed for the work that we do on projects when we have grant funding or when we have federal and state funding for roads. And so we cash flow those projects up front. And so if we don't have that cash in our treasury, it's not earning interest because it's sitting in the state's treasury because they haven't reimbursed us for that. So this will help us get some benefits from that, but then also getting looking for grants and helping us get new grants for projects.
Okay. Well, you said the magic word for me to develop revenue so we could fix our roads, fix our bridges, and things like that, and bring back some of that money that we should have been reimbursed for on work done. So that's the magic for that. Okay, for me anyway. Any other comments? Any comments or questions from public? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
So move.
I have a move and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We'll move on to road maintenance.
Road maintenance. This is the road crew department. Revenues in the amount of $2,205,802 and total expenditures of $2,205,802 with a zero net county cost. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Any questions from public? Seeing none. All those in favor say, can I have a motion?
Temporary do pass.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We'll move on to capital outlay.
Capital outlay fund. Total revenue in the amount of $48,621,849 with expenditures of $49,296,849 It says a county cost. However, this money is actually sitting in their fund balance of $675,000. We have a detail of the capital outlay in fixed assets. Hold on, we'll bring that up in just a moment. Fixed assets. And then go down. And so most of this, down just a little bit further. Most of these projects, the total $49 million is the jail. We're anticipating the solar project. However, that will be all financed. And then the mental health modular building, $6 million, and that will be financed through mental health. There's also $1.5 million dedicated to the IT infrastructure and ERP updates. So that makes up the majority of the $49 million. The rest of it is basically rollover projects from last year, and then a little bit of additional funding for the master plan and the ADA plan. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none. Any questions from the public? Or bring it back to the board.
Move temporary do pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I oppose. Hearing none. Move on to road projects, SP1, and bridges capital improvement projects.
So the road projects and SB1 funding, we've combined this budget together. Total revenue of $64,045,798. The expenditures are the same amount of $64,045,798. If you look, there's two items under the expenditures. The $2,030,154 is the SB1 anticipated expenditures and revenue, and then $62,015,644. That is for the road projects, and it's a continuation of all the projects that we had in fiscal year 17-18. The detail, and I've also included a packet as part of your packet that has the detail of the road projects. Go back down to fixed assets. And gives you a detail of those road projects. They're the same projects as they were the last year also.
Okay, any questions?
Any questions?
Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Before I take a motion, so a number of these newer projects are FEMA. Is there any sort of update as far as the progress, as far as the reimbursement from FEMA, where we're at with this?
Correct. A good portion of them are reimbursable through FEMA, the state, and then we use the RTSP funds.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think, and the question is that what is the update of the levy break and what?
Yeah,
I think that was your question, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So what I can do is, I know I've talked to Kevin about this. They are working on it. It's been a little bit slow in the makes, but you know what I'll do is I'll bring this back to the board. I'll ask him to give a presentation on the status of that July 24th. If just to give you a status update.
That would be great. Because I think we got to start making some more noise. Yeah. We don't want to forget about this.
Right. Well, and I can assure you that we have been working on it, and I know Kevin has been. We hired a company to help us with this, so I know that we have been working on it, and they have been facilitating it. But we'll just give you an update on it. It's just a slow process. If you recall, the flooding in this county a couple decades ago caused a lot of problems out there on Airline Highway 25 going out. It actually closed the road, and they had to bring a lot of rock in. And there was a lot of road closures, a lot of issues. It took decades for the reimbursement. There was a long process. I don't think it's going to be as long because it wasn't as big of an event, but it's still a process. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we have been receiving some revenue on that project. We're just anticipating that we'll receive more in this coming year's budget, 18-19.
Great. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
Temporary due pass.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Hearing none. We have to do the county service areas.
County service areas and CFDs revenue in the amount of $1,026,986. Total expenditures of $1,475,260 with the net. It's not actually a net county cost. There's a use of fund balance of $448,274, and then as we close the year, we will also be the amounts in each CSA's fund balance will be available for expenditure during this year, the fiscal year 18-19. And for a detail of all those CSA funds, under the CSA budgets, we have each of those funds. It's not showing up on there for some reason. We have each of those funds in our on our recommended budget and on our website. Any questions?
Supervisor Medina has one. I'll come back to Supervisor Munzer.
This is specifically on Dunville CSA number 50. If you look at the detail.
CSA 50?
Yes, ma'am.
Way down there. Way down. Down below. Keep going. Sorry.
No,
We'll
understood.
get to it. 34, yeah, it's way down. Yeah, okay, Dunville.
There's a large increase from last year to this year.
And what?
Bottom line, when you look at, for instance, when you look at the salary and benefits forced labor, which is 4210, is that right?
Correct.
And then again, you have the services and supplies labor at 63.
So we will have a new CSA coordinator this year, and that revenue and that person's expenses will be allocated to each of the CSAs. And then also there's a budgeted amount in there should there be any road work. The road crew goes out there often or may go out there during the year to work on various issues in the CSA. And so that's budgeted for also. If you look at what's actually been spent in the last couple of years, that's usually quite a bit. It's less than what we budgeted for, but we budget.
But if you look at 2015, did we have a CSA coordinator?
Pardon me?
In 2015, did we have a CSA coordinator?
In 17-18, we had it in the budget for a CSA coordinator.
It just doesn't make sense when you look at these numbers. There's nothing on the 610.905 for 15, 16, 17, and then there's 42 now. And then when you look at service and supplies labor, it jumps up from...
So it's 2017 actual numbers, and then...
Yes. 2017 has nothing either, and then it has 2643.50, and then it jumps up to 6349. Isn't there a percentage that each CSA shares?
That's correct.
And so we're, in essence, we're increasing this now. If you look at, I believe it's based upon expenditure, or is it based upon revenue?
So I think what you're seeing is that there wasn't a CSA coordinator, and we weren't really providing adequate services in the CSAs. So the actual amount is lower because we were charging for work that was actually done.
So what is the percentage?
Now we're budgeting for work that's actually going to be done now because we have somebody to do it.
So
I don't know the percentage for each individual.
Well,
CSA.
I need to know. I mean, you look at this; it's 4,200, and how many CSAs do we have?
31 active.
So that's 100 and something thousand. So, you did not go to the CSAs and talk to them about this at all. It's just, it's to me, I have people calling saying, where are these numbers coming from? Then on the service and water supplies treatment, you go from 21 up to 39.
Right.
What is the increase in that?
I'm sorry, which one was that?
If you look at 619.276 services and supplies water treatment, it jumps up to 39,903 when it was historically at 21,000. So there's an additional, 18,000? Where is that coming from?
I assume that's for the work that we're going to be doing out there with changing out the green sand in the well and adding capacity.
So that's
an increase to it.
Yeah, where's that? See, the problem you have is there's no communication. There's no communication to CSA 50 on the budget part of it. When you're looking at the last, there has to be a certain percentage. I mean, we can't just charge these CSAs any amount we want to, and that's what we're doing because you're looking at no one knows the percentages. No one knows.
So this is a budget. Just for clarity, this is a budget to perform the work. We haven't charged anybody yet for those particular duties, but we're budgeting for it so we can do the work. I'm not referring. Not so much on the service and supplies. I'm talking about salary and benefits of 4,200, along with service and supplies labor of 63. The summation of that is 11,000. When in the past it's ran only 42, 36, 26, 24, and 13. I mean, where are these numbers coming from? That's what I'm looking at is what's the percentage?
There is no percentage. It's an estimate of how much work we think we're going to do and what are the costs going to be associated with doing that work. Because every CSA is different. We can't just divide it up by a percentage for each.
So where you come up with the salary and benefits forced labor?
I don't know. That's been done in the past. I'm not familiar with that line item.
Okay, well, it hasn't been done in the past because if you look at 2015, 2016, 2017, there's zero. The
actuals were zero, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually the budget was zero too. The 2018 adopted budget was zero, and then the CAO recommended was 4210. So what they're wondering is where are these numbers coming from?
Right.
That's the questions that I've been receiving on after I sent out this budget. And then once again, it's, we're taking dollars from their CSA. Their revenues come from property tax, and they also did is it a 218? Is that what it's called? They did a 218. So they have all these monies going into the CSA, and now we're taking them out. And we're not providing them with that service, and we're not even explaining to them where these dollars are coming from. That's what's happening out there.
Right. Well, so just to correct you, we are not taking money out of the CSAs for services that are not rendered to the CSA. Well, anything that's charged to a CSA is for a service that was rendered to that CSA.
So this sales and benefit forced labor, 4,200. How do you track that then?
don't know what's in the forced labor.
Are you talking about DPs?
So the CSA coordinator, which should be in place in the next couple of months, those benefits, they do cost tracking. They keep track of the work that they do in each CSA, and that gets allocated out to each CSA, just like on the road crew. So right now we've set a budget. A budget's been set so that those charges can be made. If they come to more than that, we'll have to come back to the board to ask for more. However, they usually, as you can see in the past, have come in less. But we have not had a CSA coordinator in the last couple of years.
So we have $4,210. How did we derive that number?
An estimate of what services would be provided to that department, to that CSA. If that's not what actually happens, they would not be charged those amounts.
Mr. Medina, or Supervisor Medina, can I?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I have issue with staff keep saying we have not had a CSA coordinator.
Thank you.
We have had a person coordinating the CSA at halftime position.
Right. And
again, because I hear that also from my constituents. Well, you haven't even had a coordinator. We have had a person who half time was supposed to deal with the CSAs.
Correct.
And I think that is part of the reason, Supervisor Medina, you're feeling this frustration, is because that person did not have the time to communicate what was going on with the individual CSAs and their budgets. I know I've tried to do that in the last year or so, have meetings and relay that information to some of my CSAs, and I thank staff for their assistance in doing that. But this is why I lobbied for over a year to have a full-time CSA coordinators that the CSAs are going to have to pay for, so that we can alleviate this problem, so that we can establish communication with them, and it'd be a two-way communication. We can hear from them what they feel needs to be done within their CSA, and then we can relay back to what they can afford to have done. So I hope that maybe answers some of your questions.
Well, and the communication was even worse due to the fact that halftime CSA coordinator position was not filled. So the functions of that halftime CSA coordinator were being done by different staff at different times, and it was disjointed and confusing. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes.
And honestly, a lot of times when the CAO's office jumped in to help out, a lot of that time, that staff time, didn't get charged to CSAs. That was just done, and Supervisor Munzer's out there a lot talking with the CSAs, and his time's not compensated and charged to the CSAs. So there are a lot of services that are being provided to the CSAs that aren't being charged to the CSAs. Yeah. So the budget is a cost plan. We have to have costs budgeted in each of the CSAs in order to perform the work. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to run at that level, or we may run over and we may need to come back and make changes. But we can't do the work without appropriations in the budget units to do the work.
Did anyone communicate this to the CSAs?
Not yet.
So the budget's going to be passed, but no one's communicated beforehand.
Well, communicating with the CSAs is difficult because who are we communicating with? We don't have boards.
It's not difficult. I mean, I brought them in here several times with you. So, I mean, don't use that as an excuse, please.
Well, and we did communicate with the Dunnville CSA. They were provided with the budget in advance.
And that's why they're having these questions.
But they didn't ask RMA these questions.
Well, if you're going to provide, if you're going to take money from these people, we need to provide a service, and we're not doing that. We have to understand that we're not providing the service, that we are taking money from them. And that's all I'm after is if the CSA coordinator, you were undermanned, we had half, no, we didn't have any. Now that we have someone in there, we have to see results.
Right, and that's the plan. We've had a CSA coordinator for 2 weeks.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My original question was going to be, because, again, I didn't pull any previous budgets, but I thought we had a public hearing during the budget session. And is that what we did a couple meetings back? We had the public hearing on the CSAs a couple meetings back?
That was to approve the putting the assessments on the tax roll.
And that's what, do we normally do that during the budget hearing times?
Yeah, we do that every
And
year.
we just did it early.
I don't know if we've always done it during budget hearings.
Usually
but
it comes after in August, but they were ahead of time this year.
That comes way later. You guys were way ahead of the curve this time.
Yeah, so we came ahead of budget hearings this time because we wanted to give the opportunity to get it in the budget so that the budget actually reflects the fees that will be assessed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Move temporary pass.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.
Oppose?
Here.
Pardon me?
Here.
Okay. 3-1. And we go to final budget deliberations. CALS Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is a time for you to just discuss all the items that have been heard. What I'd like to do just quickly is just thank staff for all their hard work. It's a complicated budget. The budget process takes a lot of time. And I want to thank you, the board, as well, because you guys take a lot of your time out in advance during these 6 months to have special board meetings to discuss the budget in advance, so that way it's not complicated. I think this is the first budget we've got done in 2 hours or 2.5 hours, probably when we're done. I've been here before where it's taken multiple days. And it's been
a week.
Yeah, very complicated. And I think there's a lot to this budget, and I think we've tackled it, in segments. We've discussed certain items and discussed those items in detail, and so I think it's a better process to do it this way. And I just want to thank staff, the department heads, the residents that have input, as well as the board. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I want to hand it back to you.
Yeah, one of the comments that I have, I want to thank the administration or staff and department heads for putting this together. I think it's a great system to work on this, months in advance, and to have some, deliberations as we're going along in the spring. But there are areas that we need to strive to continue to improve on. I think we just highlighted one of probably the biggest sore that we have in the county with these CSAs, and hopefully we get the appropriate staff person on board and start managing it way we all envision it to work, and I'm confident we'll get there. A lot of other areas have improved immensely as far as transparency, especially with the Open Gov program and technology. So, hopefully we'll look forward that's a real benefit not only to the county staff and supervisors, but to the public and people to be able to see what's happening with their budget and the CSAs and so forth. Any other comments from my colleagues? No? If that, we'll move on to the resolution adopting the GAN limit, which is, I guess, Joe Paul part of it, or you had
Melinda put it together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Melinda.
So you have a resolution to sign for the GAN limit. There's two pieces to the GAN limit. We were in the recommended budget. We only have one part of it, so I gave you a little packet that has a cover for the resolution, and in it It has, the first page is a true up, looking at the gallon limit that we had set last year versus what we've actually received to date on revenue. The gallon limit last year was $34.9 million, and we've so far collected $25.5 million, so we are within our gallon limit. The second page is the gallon limit for calculating for the budget that we've just put together and looked at for 2018 to 2019. The gallon limit is $36.6 million, and our revenue would be 29.9, so we are within our gallon limit. So we'd ask that you adopt the resolution for the gallon limit.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Move to adopt resolution number 2018-31.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. I guess that covers everything.
One more thing, we also have the resolution for the adopting the budget itself.
Oh, okay. Where's that resolution?
Okay, so to adopt the the recommended budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. We also have a resolution for that. It also, our budget includes the required schedules 1 through 15. The first in your packet.
Do you have that?
I don't think we have. Where is that in the packet?
The resolution's not in the packet, but Janet has the resolution to pass. And then the schedules are not in the packet. They're on the website. However, the first schedule is in your packet. It's a summary of all the budget units. It's just a summary of the whole entire budget. And then on the, here we have, let's go back up here. We do have all the schedules 1 through 8. Let me find them. Let me find the schedules. There's schedules 1 through, actually it's schedules 1 through 15 throughout the document that talk about revenues, expenditures, and they all sum up to Schedule 1. So those are in your budget as required. The authorized positions are in your budget as required, and so are the fixed assets. And so we have a resolution adopting the fiscal year 18-19 budget and including any changes, which I do not believe there were any changes that you made throughout the budget hearings. Any questions?
I don't know.
Okay, so if I can, so we're actually adopting the budget
So
now.
do me a favor, Mr. Chair. Can we have a 5-minute recess? We need to discuss this because Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz isn't here. We just need to get some clarity on one item.
Yeah,
If you don't
I
mind.
think so.
Thanks.
We'll have a 5-minute recess or
Okay.
or 10 minutes to make sure we get it done.
As long as we're out of here by noon.
There's all the schedules.
Thank you. Okay, we're reconvene and have further discussion on a couple of the items that we had, some discrepancies on the vote, or how else would you say that? There's a better way of saying that.
Yeah, in the abundance of caution with regards to the vote and the amount of supervisors that we have here today, at this point, we want to go ahead and continue this item. We're requesting your board to continue the item to be heard tomorrow. We have that in our agenda packet to continue in case we need to move forward with more deliberations or some changes. Last year we had the same thing happen with the Ag Commissioner's office, so we came back the next day to finalize that and then present it to your board, and then your board basically approved the budget. So tomorrow morning we'll go ahead and hear this item. We'll hear the two items, County Council and the CSA, that were at 3-1 vote, and then we will then move forward with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue this this meeting to
You want to
post the regular. We're going to continue this budget hearing to the end of the regular meeting for tomorrow.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion is to
Continue
the meeting.
the meeting until tomorrow after our regular meeting.
Can this be done, because of the situation, can this be done before we start our regular meeting?
I have to look at the posting. What is the posting?
I believe the posting says after.
So it has to be
Yeah.
after.
Yes.
I was concerned that we might end up with the same issue that we're facing today if we delayed it until after our regular meeting.
No, I think it's already posted to.
No, if it is posted, then we're
And
we have to live by that.
And the only other concern I had was the resolution.
Yeah,
that
we created that and have the clerk has that item, so we do have the resolution in place. But we'll continue the last few items as I mentioned, and then we'll just hear this item tomorrow after the regular board.
All right.
Okay. All right.
I'll second Supervisor Medina's motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay. We'll see.